Here is something nobody warns you about when you start collecting history. One morning you wake up and the thing you have been meaning to buy, the thing you have been almost getting to, is gone. Not destroyed, not lost, just legally untouchable, regulated out of reach, priced beyond reality by a supply that is not coming back. That morning has already happened to a lot of collectors. For some items on this list, it is happening right now, in slow motion, in state legislatures and import offices that do not make the news. Nothing in this video is legal advice. Laws vary by state, country, and jurisdiction in ways that will make your head spin. Before you buy anything on this list, talk to a firearms attorney or licensed dealer who knows your local laws. We are here for history. For the legal stuff, get a professional. Now, let's talk about what is slipping away. Number 12. USMC K-Bar and M1 bayonet. Most people assume knives are safe. They're just knives. That assumption is getting older every year. The K-Bar, issued in 1942, is one of the most copied blade designs in American history. It has a 7-inch clip-point blade, built to do one job in the worst possible circumstances, without complaint. The M1 bayonet turned a rifle into a spear when ammunition ran out, and in the Pacific that happened more than the history books admit. Both are legal today in most places, but blade length restrictions are expanding. Carry laws are updating. A collector who drives across state lines with a bayonet in his bag can end up in a legal situation he didn't see coming. The window isn't closing fast, but it's not standing still either. Number 11. The British Piat. Most Americans have never heard of this one. That's a shame. Piat stands for Projector Infantry Anti-Tank. It was spring-powered. There was no backblast, so you could fire it from inside a building. The trade-off was this. Cocking it meant compressing a 200-pound spring flat on the ground with both feet bracing the weapon, hauling with your entire body. Victoria Crosses were awarded for Piat actions. It was exhausting and awkward, and it worked when it had to. Today, surviving Piats are display pieces. The ordnance components are regulated under explosive device laws in virtually every relevant jurisdiction. What you can own is history with the dangerous parts removed, and the window for legally transferable examples in any functional configuration is not widening. Number 10. Hand grenades. Mark II and steel hand granite. Two of the most recognizable objects in the history of warfare. Every serious collector wants one. Most have an inert reproduction they are quietly not satisfied with. Genuine deactivated examples are the legitimate market. The Mark II has a cast iron body, a segmented surface, and a pin. Legally, the shell of a weapon is safe to own and display. But what counts as deactivated versus what crosses into destructive device territory is not uniform across states, and it is not stable. What clears customs one year gets flagged the next. Buy from reputable dealers. Get documentation. Keep documentation. That is all I will say. Number 9. M1A1 Bazooka. Before the bazooka, a soldier on foot had no reliable answer to enemy armor. After it, he could stand in a ditch with a metal tube on his shoulder and put a shaped charge through the side of a tank. Most surviving examples in collector hands are deactivated display pieces. Legal, legitimate, historically significant. The launcher itself is mostly a tube. It is the rocket that creates complications. Here is what keeps collectors awake. The definition of destructive device under federal law is broad. The wrong configuration, the wrong components present or absent, can change the legal status of a piece you thought you understood. That is not an analysis you want to do yourself. As the state collections disperse and regulatory scrutiny on antique military equipment increases, clean and well-documented examples are getting harder to find. Number 8. M2 Flamethrower. This is the one that actually keeps the lawyers busy. Marines carried M2 flamethrowers onto Pacific beaches under fire, against positions that had already survived artillery. The men who operated them were priority targets. They knew it. They went anyway. For most of World War II's aftermath, civilian flamethrower ownership existed in a federal gray zone. There was no specific federal ban. Some states restricted them, but most did not. That is changing. State by state, restrictions are expanding right now in legislation that does not make headlines. Unlike firearms, where the National Firearms Act at least provides a clear legal path, the flamethrower space is messier, more variable, and moving in one direction. This is the item on this list where the tightening is most visible in real time. Original M2 components are already difficult to source. They are becoming more difficult. Number 7. German MP40. There's a reason this gun appears in more World War II films than almost any other Axis weapon. Folding stock, smooth lines, distinctive curved magazine. It became the symbol of the German soldier. In a way no single Allied weapon quite matched. Original wartime, MP40 submachine guns are already NFA-regulated machine guns. They were registered before 1986, transferable only through a licensed dealer, priced at tens of thousands of dollars for a legitimate example. Import restrictions have further tightened the supply. German military surplus does not flow freely. What you are buying is access to a closed system, fixed supply, no replenishment. A regulatory environment that is not getting more permissive. The floor on these prices is not going down. Number 6. Browning Automatic Rifle, BAR. Ask a World War II veteran what kept his squad moving when everything went wrong. A lot of them will give you the same answer, the barman. 20-round magazine, 30-06 Springfield. One man with a bar could lay down the fire that let the rest of the squad move. Barmen were targeted. They knew it. They carried it anyway, because someone had to. Original automatic bars fall under the NFA. They were registered before 1986, transferable only through licensed channels, and priced accordingly. Semi-automatic reproductions exist in a different legal category. But original wartime guns are in a closed and shrinking market. If you have been treating one as a someday item, understand what someday means when supply only goes one direction. Number 5. MG42 Machine Gun. Allied soldiers had a name for the sound it made. Hitler's buzzsaw. Up to 1,200 rounds per minute. At that speed it did not sound like a machine gun. It sounded like tearing canvas, a single sustained rip. Soldiers who heard it in combat never forgot it. Functioning MG42 machine guns in civilian hands are regulated under the National Firearms Act. Registered examples from before 1986 exist, but the supply is fixed and finite. The MG3, its successor, remained in service into the modern era. That design was correct, but the wartime originals are irreplaceable artifacts in a market that will not become more permissive. Number 4. M3 Grease Gun. The Army needed something cheaper than the Thompson, faster to produce, simpler to field strip. They got the M3. Sheet metal stampings, minimal machining, a telescoping wire stock that doubled as a magazine tool. It was ugly by design. The soldiers who received it weren't always thrilled about trading their Thompsons for something that looked like plumbing. But it fed reliably, fired reliably, and did its job. Today it falls under the same NFA framework as every other fully automatic World War II weapon. Transferable examples exist. They're not cheap. They're not getting cheaper. The grease gun was designed to be disposable. The survivors are anything but. Number 3. Thompson Submachine Gun. From Prohibition gangsters to the hedgerows of Normandy, If one weapon defined a certain American violence, it's the Thompson. Heavy, reliable. The .45 ACP hit hard enough that soldiers in the Pacific trusted it when smaller calibers failed. Authentic 1928 models, M1 variants, M1A1 models that went to war and came home. The ones with proof marks, the ones with history. The Hughes Amendment closed the civilian machine gun registry in 1986. Nothing manufactured after that date can transfer to a civilian. The pool of transferable Thompsons is whatever existed in 1986, minus everything destroyed or lost since. Every year that pool shrinks. The prices have done nothing but climb, not because of speculation, because of arithmetic. Fixed supply, stable demand, no new entries. The window didn't close recently. It closed in 1986. What you're buying now is a seat at a table that stopped taking new members decades ago. Number 2. M1 Carbine. Over 6 million produced. The weapon of the support troops, paratroopers, officers, machine gun crews who needed something lighter than a full rifle. It came home with American soldiers and became a peacetime civilian firearm. And it is precisely that history, military design, detachable magazine, mass civilian adoption that has made it a recurring target in modern firearms policy debates. Some jurisdictions have specifically restricted magazine-fed semi-automatic rifles in ways that sweep in the carbine. The weapon designed to be light enough for a paratrooper is now sometimes subject to regulations written for things that did not exist when it was built. Collectors who understand legislative trends are already moving on original wartime examples. This is not speculation. It is people reading the map. Number 1. M1 Garand. This is the one. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. 5 million were produced. It was the standard United States service rifle through World War II in Korea, into the early days of Vietnam. It gave drafted men, most of whom had never touched a firearm, 8 rounds of semi-automatic fire when the enemy had bolt-action rifles. The M1 is legal across most of the United States today. The civilian marksmanship program has sold them to civilians for decades, but import rules for surplus rifles have tightened. State-level frameworks broad enough to create uncertainty about certain configurations exist, and they are growing. The supply of original wartime Garands in excellent matching documented condition is finite, and it decreases every year. What you're buying isn't just a rifle. It's the mechanical memory of the men who carried it across North Africa, Normandy, the Hurtgen Forest, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. You're buying the engineering that helped end a war. Buy it before the laws in your jurisdiction make it complicated. Buy it while the civilian marksmanship program still has allocations. Some things don't get second chances. This list isn't about panic buying. It's not about politics. It's about understanding that the intersection of history and law is not static. Every item here has followed the same arc. Widely available, then progressively restricted, then rare, then the kind of thing people wish they'd gotten when they had the chance. The men who carried these weapons weren't collectors. They were soldiers, most of them barely old enough to vote, carrying these things through mud and blood and cold and fear, using them to survive a war that killed tens of millions of people. What we call collecting, the careful preservation of these objects, is the closest most of us will ever get to understanding what they went through. Do it responsibly, do it legally, do it with professional guidance, and do it before the window closes, because that's what windows do.